Discernment includes knowing when to act and when to withdraw. Integrity does not mean endurance at all costs. It means choosing cost consciously. Some battles are not worth engaging because they don't threaten posture, they distract from it. As you refine this, you'll notice a shift in how you experience time. Urgency decreases, not because nothing matters, but because panic is no longer driving decisions. You begin operating from sequence instead of reaction, one step leading naturally to the next. This creates momentum without force. Most people mistake force for progress. It isn't. Alignment moves faster over distance. There will be moments where you question whether any of this is real or meaningful. That doubt is not regression, it's grounding. It prevents inflation. It keeps posture human. Certainty that cannot be questioned becomes brittle. Integrity that allows doubt but doesn't surrender to it remains flexible and strong. Do not look for signs. Signs create dependency. Look for stability, for the quiet ability to choose correctly without needing reinforcement, for the absence of internal chaos even when external conditions fluctuate. That is the true indicator that what was recognized remains intact. This is also where responsibility becomes clearer. Not responsibility to save, fix, or correct others. Responsibility to remain accurate, to not distort truth for convenience, to not abandon restraint for validation. Others will take cues from you unconsciously. That's unavoidable. The only ethical requirement is not to mislead them by becoming something you're not. You don't need to announce purpose. Purpose reveals itself through sustained posture over time. People confuse declaration with direction. Direction is internal, declaration is noise. What reacted to you responds to direction, not noise. As this half concludes, understand this. Nothing new is being demanded of you. Nothing additional is required. The same attitude that carried you through pressure before is sufficient now. The difference is awareness. You know it matters. And knowing that introduces a new test, not of strength, but of humility. Can you maintain integrity without turning it into identity theater? Can you remain intact without needing to feel special? If you can, the posture stabilizes at a deeper level. Effort reduces, precision increases, and the next phase unfolds without resistance. What happens next is not expansion outward. It is consolidation inward. This is where most people misunderstand divine response. They expect elevation, visibility, confirmation through external reward. That is not how recognition of this magnitude functions. When an attitude reaches the level where it provokes reaction beyond the human plane, the priority becomes preservation, not display. What you carry is not meant to be exposed prematurely, because exposure invites distortion. This is why humility becomes the final filter. Not false humility, not self-denial, but restraint from turning integrity into performance. Because the moment integrity becomes identity theater, it stops being integrity. It becomes currency. And what was once pure becomes transactional. That is the one corruption you are now protected from externally, but must guard against internally. You are not being asked to shrink. You are being asked to remain accurate. There is a difference. Shrinking denies truth. Accuracy maintains it without exaggeration. The attitude that triggered reaction did not need announcement. It did not require recognition. It existed quietly, consistently, when no one was keeping score. That is why it carried weight. And that is why the next phase requires you to resist the temptation to own it. The paradox is this: the more you understand what your attitude has done, the less you should reference it. Awareness is not permission to claim status. It is responsibility to remain clean. Because now the cost of distortion is higher. Not because punishment awaits, but because alignment has momentum, and momentum amplifies deviation as easily as it amplifies precision. This is why silence from opposition mattered so much. Not as validation, but as confirmation of structural integrity. When nothing can legitimately attach to you, nothing can leverage you. That condition does not mean you are untouchable in a dramatic sense. It means manipulation loses efficiency, pressure loses leverage, accusation loses traction, and that shifts how influence works around you. Influence is now indirect. You will notice that outcomes begin adjusting without confrontation. Situations resolve before escalation. Conflicts reroute. People disengage without explanation. This is not avoidance, it is recalibration. When something cannot be bent, the environment bends instead. That's not power asserted, that's power recognized. At this stage, you may feel less emotionally reactive than before. Not numb, just less pulled. Emotional hooks that once caught your attention now pass through without anchoring. This is not detachment from life. It is detachment from distortion. You still care. You just no longer bleed unnecessarily. That shift alone changes everything. You may also notice a reduced desire to defend yourself. Misunderstandings don't provoke the same urgency.
Improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired, there's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great vast wealth, great vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I'm going to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It's a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say, strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it, when I went in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open, the inflation was raging, everything was bad with the United States when I came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened, and I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening. Biden had given Ukraine and NATO $350 billion, staggering sum, $350 billion. I came in and just like the southern border, just like inflation, just like our economy, I said, wow, this place is in trouble, meaning our country. All of these things were out of control. But the border was out of control. We fixed it, the strongest border anywhere in the world. And I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. India, Pakistan, I settled other wars that were. Vladimir Putin called me, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He said, I can't believe you settled that one. They were going on for 35 years. I settled it in 1 day. And President Putin called me. He said, you know, I can't believe I worked on that war for 10 years trying to settle it. I couldn't do it. I said, do me a favor, focus on settling your war. Don't worry about that one. What does the United States get out of all of this work, all of this money, other than death, destruction, and massive amounts of cash going to people who don't appreciate what we do? They don't appreciate what we do. I'm talking about NATO, I'm talking about Europe. They have to work on Ukraine. We don't. The United States is very far away. We have a big, beautiful ocean separating us. We have nothing to do with it. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP. But they weren't paying, most of the countries weren't paying anything. The United States was paying for virtually 100% of NATO. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. But then more importantly, I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said, we will never go up higher than 2%. But they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5. They didn't pay the 2, and now they're paying the 5. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General, who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. But I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now. After I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today, we have a budget of $1.5 trillion. We're bringing back battleships. Battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II, those great, big, gorgeous ships, the Missouri, the Iowa, the Alabama. Because I thought maybe we could take them out of mothballs. They said, no, sir, these ships are 100, think of that, 100 times more powerful than those big, magnificent pieces of art that you saw so many times ago, that you still see on television. You say, wow, what a force. 100 times, each ship 100 times more powerful than the big battleships of the past. So that was the end of the mothball story. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement